Hey everyone, so I thought today we'd just go over my kind of first thoughts and impressions of the Ahri rework now that she's been out on the live servers for about a week and we've had time to kind of see how her win rate's changed. I've had the chance to play against her a bunch and also played a lot of games there. So in this video, I'll kind of go over like, do I think she's OP, a quick guide on how I think she should be played at the moment, and also maybe just talk about some general stuff like, do I think she'll see pro play, and if or not, I think it's a successful rework. So to make sure I'm not clickbaiting you guys, if all you care about is whether or not Ahri is OP, yes, I think Ahri at the moment is extremely OP in solo queue. She's got a very high win rate and she's got a lot of like strengths that lean really well into solo queue. She's got a ton of mobility, like wave clear, she's good at roaming and she's very safe. I think especially as a blind pick, Ahri is very, very strong right now. So I'm going to get into the reasons for that, but just in case like all you cared about was whether or not she's OP, yes, TLDR, Ahri is very, very OP right now. So for what runes and items I kind of recommend at the moment, I do think that Electrocute Primary with Inspiration Secondary probably is the best right now in terms of runes. And for items, I really like the Everfrost Shadow Flame. I have seen some people running Luden Shadow Flame, which definitely does more damage, but I kind of think that Everfrost synergizes better with Ahri, and I think she kind of lacks damage anyway. But it's possible I'm wrong on that. And also, I have seen a few other builds cropping up, like with Cosmic Drive second or even Lichbane second. I'm not sure how I really feel about this. I do kind of think Shadow Flame is the best, but there's just not really enough data yet for me to go off, so I'm not too sure, but I think those are the best at the moment. So how do I think Ahri should be played in solo queue? I think Ahri is definitely more of like a facilitator and roaming champion, honestly sort of similar to Twisted Fate than she is an assassin. I think Ahri for a long time now has sort of lacked damage, and that's kind of like definitely her biggest weakness, but her strengths come from, I think, like she's very good at neutralizing lane, she has a lot of wave clear, she's good at roaming, has CC, and she's like very safe as well. So Ahri is like definitely OP, but damage is definitely not what she's like known for. I think the best way to kind of play Ahri at the moment is in the pre-6, you kind of just like want to try farm, do your best to neutralize, and then after level 6, level 7, around that, you should be able to one-shot the backline with your Q, and that allows you to kind of just like walk towards bot lane pretty much non-stop. And that means you can have a lot of impact on the map. I think Ahri in general is like better as a blind pick than a counter pick, because I think Ahri is not too good at like punishing her lane. I don't think there's that many lanes where she just like outright wins. There are some like where you can get solo kills, like if you play better than your opponent, but I don't think it's really like matchup wise. I think just in general Ahri is like kind of like struggles at laning aggressively. You know, she doesn't have that great poke. You're kind of relying on either an all-in or like hitting random charms. But she is very good at defensive laning. She's very hard to kill because of all the mobility she has. She has sustain, and she also has a CC that can be used defensively. I think that makes her really good as a blind pick. Roaming in general normally is really OP in solo queue, and I think that's one reason why Ahri's kind of remained this always kind of like good solo queue pick. You know, it's not often that she's been great, but she's always kind of managed to be reasonably high tier for pretty much as long as I can remember. So I do think, guys, if you are playing Ahri at the moment, one thing I've been having a lot of success on is taking TP and minion dematerializer. I don't really like Ignite on Ahri. I did try it a few games, but I do think her damage is kind of just too low. That being said, I have seen a lot of other people running Ignite, so it could be that I'm just like not playing her optimally or something like that, but just like from my experience playing against Ahri in competitive and from having played Ahri myself, I think that her strength really is like you use TP to kind of survive that pre-6 lane, and then after level 6, often you have enough wave clear, and enough, more importantly, enough cheap wave clear, that you can kind of just like spam it over and over, and there aren't many mids that can kind of like match that level of wave clear, and that allows you to just kind of like run around and impact the map. If you did want to take Ignite, I'd say Ignite versus like melee champions is a bit more doable. You're not really going to get punished in the pre-6, but I do think like that pre-6 part is pretty much the only part of the game where Ahri really gets punished. You know, in the early game, she doesn't have that strong wave clear. She's just like kind of weak overall. But after that level 6, once you have your mobility, once you have like that extra wave clear, it's very hard for you to be punished by the opponent. More likely, you'll just be kind of punished from the point of having low damage rather than punished by like, you know, getting zoned off CS or dying or anything like that. So do I think the Ahri rework is a successful rework? To be honest, I'm not really sure. I think Riot has succeeded in a couple ways. I think the Ahri is definitely stronger than before, especially in solo queue. And I also think she is more fun than before. So I think like on those accounts, like Riot definitely has succeeded with the rework. I think Yeah, obviously like her win rate's gone up a bit. She's definitely stronger. And I think like dashing around team fights like even more than she did before is pretty fun and kind of like leans into how the champion like flows together. So I am really happy about those things. But I'm not sure they really targeted power in the right places. I think a lot of the problems Ahri mains in general had with her is that like she didn't do enough damage and she kind of didn't fulfill the assassin fantasy. I think for a lot of people, Ahri has been like kind of like an entry place to playing assassins. Like a lot of the assassins are inherently pretty difficult to play, but Ahri has been one that's like somewhat an assassin, but also like much easier to play than the others. So it can be kind of a good way to enter the assassin space and start learning about those champions without getting punished super hard for it. I think that with Riot putting all the power towards her mobility, towards like being safe and unpunishable, it is very difficult for them to give more damage to her now because like you can see she's already overpowered now. She's got like a 52% win rate on top of like a 17% pick rate or something. And to be honest, there isn't really any more budget for power in her kit. You know, if you give her more damage on top of all your mobility, you're looking at some kind of balance nightmare like Akali. So I think yes, while Riot have succeeded in making it a bit stronger and a bit more fun, I do think the changes have been kind of in the wrong places. I would have liked to see actually some of her safety taken away and replaced by damage. I think some of the ways they could do this is maybe they could lower the amount of charges she gets normally and kind of increase the amount of charges she gets while team fighting. I think a problem with Ahri is that she has sustain. She is extremely difficult to gank, both because she has a defensive CC and because she has mobility. And she has like all this wave clear on top of it. So if she has damage on top of all that, like she'll just be really, really overpowered. Yeah, I kind of would have liked to see some of that safety taken away and replaced by damage, so that like good Ahri players are kind of rewarded and bad Ahri players are punished a bit harder. So will Ahri be seen in pro play? I think in the kind of near future, it's likely she will see some pro play. I think just at the moment she's like pretty overtuned and she's gonna fill that kind of role that's maybe similar to like Vex or similar to TF, where they're kind of these like wave clearing facilitators that are somewhat hard to punish in lane because they have their wave clear. I guess Vex isn't quite the same as the other two, but I definitely think that like Ahri is actually more similar to champions like TF or Galio or even like champs from way back like Aurelion Sol or Talia, where their kind of strength comes from their wave clear and their safety. So I do think that yeah, in the short term, Ahri will definitely see pro play, but I'm actually not too hopeful about Ahri in the long run. I think Ahri before was kind of like a decent niche pick. The reason I'd say she probably wasn't played more is because for most pro players, I think LeBlanc kind of filled the same role, but just better. Or TF, there are like other champs that could kind of do what she did better. And I think in the long term, they've made it very, very difficult to balance this champ. There are some champions where they've got a kit where they have these kind of like tuning knobs that are very easy to change. I think you can look at like Orianna as an example. Like she's a very well balanced champion. If Orianna's too weak, normally you can just give her like a little bit more damage on her abilities. And if she's too strong, you can take some of that away. I think Ahri, on the other hand, where they've put so much power into things that aren't just easily tunable by numbers, it's going to be very, very difficult to balance this champion. If they give her more damage, like what are they going to do? They're just going to like cap her dashes, or they're going to you're only going to get like one dash for every 2 takedowns. Like I'm sure there are ways to do this. But I think in general, just the way they've gone with Ahri means that if Ahri gets nerfed, which I expect she will, because right now her win rate is so high, I think the places that they're going to like take away power is going to be from her mobility, because you can't take away any more damage or she's just going to be a support pretty much. So if they do take away more mobility and she's kind of left as this like meh mobility, like good wave clear, low damage option, I don't think she's going to be picked at all. So I could be completely wrong, guys. Like I'm not playing in any scrims or anything at the moment, but that's just kind of my thoughts. And also, like she just hasn't been out for that long, and we'll have to see where Riot kind of like takes it. But I think TLDR, I think Ahri is really OP, and she is actually really fun. So she's definitely like worth playing in solo queue right now if you want a lot of like free LP. You want to get a little bit of elo inflation while you can. But in general, I'm not a huge fan of the rework. I think it's just kind of one of those middle of the pack reworks. It's definitely not on the same level as Scion or something like that. I know it wasn't the full rework, obviously, so it's not meant to be that sort of scope. But I think Ahri is a champion that has like a lot of potential, and I'm really kind of I'm not that enthused about the kind of the changes they went with. So anyway, guys, hopefully that was like helpful. I don't want to do a full in-depth guide on Ahri yet because I feel like I haven't like played enough of her, and also like she just hasn't been out in her rework state for very long. I don't want to kind of jump the gun and then have to change a lot of things. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.